If folks would find their seats, please. All right, Eric, would you open the vote for attendance? You ready first? Okay.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn to Senator Locke, who chairs the FOIA bills, and let her start that there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subcommittee met on January 23rd and took up the following 7 bills, beginning with Senate Bill 1090, which was my bill on the Freedom of Information Act that authorizes the Board of Trustees of the Fort Monroe Authority to hold closed meetings to discuss matters relating to specific grants, gifts, and bequests from private sources. And on a recommendation of 8-0, the subcommittee recommends that the bill be reported, and I so moved.
Second.
Senate Bill 1090, reported. Record your votes. Okay.
Ayes 12, no 0.
Senate Bill 1180, Senator Stewart's bill, comes as a recommendation of the Virginia Freedom of Information Advisory Council. This bill defines the term trade secret for the purposes of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as meaning the same as that term is defined in the Uniform Trade Secrets Act. And it was recommended by the subcommittee to be reported on a 5-0 vote, and I so move.
Senator Locke, any of them that had no opposition, let's do them in block.
Okay, so that was Senate Bill 1180. Senate Bill 1182, also Senator Stewart's bill that comes as a recommendation of the FOIA Council. It clarifies that certain requirements of current law regarding participation in public meetings through electronic communication means do not apply to meetings held to address a state of emergency declared by the governor. Specifically, the requirements that public bodies adopt a written policy regarding participation by electronic communication, have a quorum of a public body physically assembled at a primary or central location, and make arrangements for the voice of any member participating from a remote location to be heard by all persons at the primary or central location. And on a vote of 7-0, the subcommittee recommended that that bill also be reported. Senate Bill 1184, Senator Stewart's bill. No, that one was not. 7-0. Okay. Senate Bill 1431, Senator Obenshain's bill. There is a substitute. And I move adoption of the substitute.
Probably moved and seconded that we adopt the substitute for 1431. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
And the substitute was recommended to be reported on an 8-0 vote. And this requires the Virginia Freedom of Information Advisory Council to provide and local elected officials to complete training on the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act. The bill requires local elected officials to complete such training at least once every 2 years while they are in office. The bill also eliminates the 3-day notice requirement for a hearing on a petition for mandamus or injunction alleging a violation of the act. It also contains technical amendments. The substitute requires training to be held online and delays the enactment of the legislation until July 1st, 2020.
Okay.
And Senate Bill 1554, Senator Survell's bill is recommended for reporting as amended on an 8-0 vote. The amendments specify the necessary intent to be found in violation of the section. And this bill provides that in addition to any penalties imposed under FOIA, If a court finds that any officer, employee, or member of a public body failed to provide public records to a requester in accordance with the provisions of FOIA because such officer, employee, or member of a public body intentionally altered or destroyed the requested public records prior to the expiration of the applicable record retention period set by the retention regulations promulgated pursuant to the Virginia Public Records Act set by the State Library Board, the court shall impose upon such officer, employee, or member of in his individual capacity, whether or not a writ of mandamus or injunctive relief is awarded, a civil penalty of up to $100 per record altered or destroyed, which amount shall be paid into the literary fund. And if a court finds that a member of a public body voted to certify a closed meeting, and at the time of such certification, this certification was not in accordance with the requirements of FOIA, the court may impose on each such member voting to certify in his individual capacity, whether or not a writ of mandamus or injunctive release is awarded, a civil penalty of $500, which amount shall be paid into the literary fund.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Sutherland.
I'm not sure the current posture we're in, but if the motion was that we're considering the bills that were just all read through the subcommittee chair Locke's report, I would just request that Senate Bill 1554 come out of any such block.
Okay, that one is out. All right. What we're dealing with then is Senate Bills 1180, 1182, and 1431. They were heard in subcommittee and came out unanimously, so we will not have any debate.
We could do 1180 and 1182 in a block. 1431 was requested by finance, and it had a substitute.
Okay, all right.
We could do 1180, we could do this one first. Since it's already done.
All right, which one? 1431 has been requested by finance, so the proper motion would be to report and re-refer to finance. Is there a motion?
I move that Senate Bill 1431 be reported and re-referred to finance.
All right. Go ahead and record your votes. Okay,
Ayes 12, no 0.
all right. Going back to 1180 and 1182, the motion was made that they be reported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, record your votes. All right, and Senate Bill 1554, you wanted that taken out of the block, so the motion was to report that, and was there a second?
Second.
Probably moved and seconded, 1554 be reported. Is any discussion?
There are 3 amendments.
Okay, would you
I
read the
move the-
amendments? Have they been reported? The amendments, okay.
Yeah,
Migo,
those
would you report them?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendments appear on page 12 of the report. The First Amendment, there are 3 total. The First Amendment is on line 22 after members strike intentionally. The Second Amendment is on line 23 after records insert with the intent to avoid the provisions of this chapter. The Third Amendment is on line 25 after court strike shall and insert may.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept those amendments?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded, those amendments be added to the bill. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, I think it's in the right posture. Did anyone, Senator Sutherland, did you want to speak, or do you just want to vote?
I just wanted to take it out of the block so I could put a no vote on it. I think I have the sense of the committee, though.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, report your vote. Okay.
Ayes 11, noes 2.
All right. Okay, that leaves us with Stewart
1492.
and Chafin. There was some opposition, is that correct, on both of those?
There was abstentions. On Senate Bill 1184, Senator Stewart's bill, dealing with sexual assault response teams. This bill provides that the Virginia Freedom of Information Act shall not apply to sexual assault response teams, with the exception of records relating to protocols and policies of the sexual assault response team and guidelines for the community's response established by the sexual assault response team, which the bill provides shall be public records and subject to the provisions of FOIA. The bill also provides that FOIA shall not apply to multidisciplinary child sexual abuse response teams. This bill is also a recommendation of the Freedom of Information Advisory Council. And a recommendation of the subcommittee is that the bill be reported 7-0 with one abstention.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, record your votes. Okay. That one is reported.
And the
Senate Bill-
final bill was Senate Bill 1492, Senator Chafin's bill, excludes this one-line amendment.
Miga, you reported.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator McPike.
Yeah, I was the abstention in the committee on this, and I believe Amigo has an amendment that resolves what my issue was for an amendment to this.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will first read the subcommittee amendment, which is on line 316 after secrets, strike the remainder of line 316 through et sec on line 317. Okay. And the-
Motion on that.
Move that amendment.
Second.
Properly moved and second that we adopt that amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next amendment from Senator McPike is on line 323 after the applicant strike semicolon and memoranda, staff evaluations or other information prepared by the department exclusively for the evaluation of grant applications.
Was that amendment heard by the subcommittee?
There was discussion around it, but that specific amendment was not.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Pike?
Mr. Chairman, that was not discussed in subcommittee, but I understand the administration, working with Senator Chafin, worked through this language and have agreed to this amendment.
Senator Chafin is not opposed to the amendment.
Okay. To his bill. All right. Is there a motion for to adopt that amendment?
Move the amendment.
Properly moved and seconded that amendment be also added to the bill. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, record your votes. All right, that one is reported.
That concludes the report.
Okay. I had tended to go into the gambling ones, but Senator Hanger is here and he needs to get upstairs, so I'm not. Take him out of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have Senate Bill 1755, and I appreciate the courtesy of everyone at this time. Mr. Chairman, as this bill came to you, it was at the request of one of my local governments installing some night locks for security purposes and safety of the students. The bill would have basically changed building codes and so that these types of devices could be used. After discussions with the fire marshal and folks from building code and fire department officials, it appears that we're not ready to do this. And so Amigo has a substitute that I'd like to offer that changes this into a section 1 bill so that we can, and what that would do is direct the Department of Housing and Community Development to convene a stakeholders group of entities that enforce the uniform statewide building code and statewide fire prevention code, and that they work on proposals with the goal of assisting in the provision of safety and security of the Commonwealth's public and private elementary and secondary schools, and higher education for active shooter and hostile threats. They would review all of these locking devices, barricade devices, and other safety measures for use in any classroom that are temporary in nature that could be used in active shooter and hostile threat situations. And I believe we have consensus with the parties that this would be the first step to determine what is the best way to appropriately lock these classrooms.
Move to substitute.
Properly moved and second that we adopt the substitute. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. You have already discussed the bill, and are there any questions of the patron? Any opposition to the bill? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Second.
Properly moved and second the bill be reported. Record your votes. Button for him. Oh, I do. Okay. Thank you.
So maybe.
I guess so.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Okay. I'm going to deal with some of the gambling bills up front, but since we don't have either one of the patrons, I'll act as a discipline. If these bills were to go forward, there would be a study. If these bills were to go forward, then the Finance Committee has requested them. So my suggestion is that we go ahead and hear from the Secretary and then refer them to Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Aubrey Lane, Secretary of Finance. I'm not here advocating for any particular bill or opposing this bill on behalf of the governor. But I am here to talk about the public policy related to these gaming bills, not just the sports betting, but the other ones that previously come before this committee. And that's what the whole idea of the study is about. It's about getting the public policy correct. We have significant questions to answer regarding financial impacts on the lottery, how the revenue sharing, some of these bills are prescriptive as to revenue sharing. We know that's not probably the way we'd like to negotiate from. The interrelationship between both the local and the state governments as to how they share these revenues. Most importantly, the second big concern is the regulatory structure. There's no clear path forward. Do we have any experience in how we would set the public policy in terms of not only the regulation of the gaming, but also how it be in the public purpose?
Is that mic on?
Public. Certainly the social concerns and the fiscal impacts. If you look at many of the bills, the fiscal impacts, the bills do not take into account the social impacts that would be related to these bills. And then, of course, the unintended consequences. So a lot of people have asked me, why study? It's not about to understand gaming as much it is to get the public policy right in these particular bills. And that is why the governor has advocated that the study is part of one of his budget amendments. So, Mr. Chairman, that's my comments as to how we proceed. I know Senators Reeve and DeSteph had some questions about the study, certainly taking those into account. In fact, we've already begun this process to make sure we make the November 1st deadline that we have in the budget. And, of course, if we need additional revenues, we would certainly ask for those.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any objection to sending them to a study, which would send it to Finance? Yes. We're just dealing with the two sports betting ones right now, 1238 and 1356. Is anybody in opposition to that? If not, is there a motion?
Is that a letter?
No, that's a move to report and re-refer to Finance with a recommendation of a study.
Second.
You've heard the motion. Any opposition? All right. Record your votes.
Ayes 14, noes 1.
Okay, those are out of the way. The next one, Senator Cosgrove, I'm going to take you next.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for letting me come before your committee. I have Senate Bill 1721. This bill is one that you've seen before. You saw it last year. When I was here last year, I explained what was happening with gaming machines and different rest stops and restaurants and bars. And I reminded the committee that if we didn't do something about it last year, we were going to see a tremendous increase in these unregulated machines in the coming year. Well, I was wrong. Instead of doubling it, it tripled it. And so these machines are all over the Commonwealth right now, Mr. Chairman. They're not regulated. The state's not getting a penny out of it. Charitable gaming's not getting a penny out of it, and we've got to do something about it. But, Mr. Chairman, I think that with the way the committee's going, I think it's a wise avenue that you're taking. I would ask that you roll my bill into Senator Reeves' bill. I don't have that bill number with me right now, but which would actually take care of outlawing the illegal players. So, Mr. Chairman, that is my request to you, is to basically roll my bill on Senator Reeves' bill.
To do that, I think what we're going to have to do is re-refer it to Courts Committee, because that's where Senator Reeves' bills can be heard. Is that
Oh,
correct?
Mr. Chairman, I didn't know it was going to court. Ugh.
Well, you can tell him, and he'll,
Okay, all right.
he'll cover it.
I'd make that motion
Okay.
for Wednesday. It'll be heard Wednesday.
Is there a second to that? Properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Record your votes.
Ayes 15, noes 0.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. members
That
of the
one is
committee.
dealt with. Senator Sturtevant? Not here. Senator McPike? Would you like for your bill to go to the study too?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman?
Would you like for your bill to go to the study also?
I think we'd like to take it up today, Senate Bill 1671 on charitable gaming. I think that portions of it will be studied, but I think there's an important argument to be made to this committee that there's a framework already in place for charitable gaming that this bill would fall within. It would allow a level playing field for many of the organizations that are in your home districts, like American Legion, VFWs, and other places. I know Senator Sturtevant has a bill also dealing with a quantity of devices, but I'd suggest that the committee take up this bill on its merits, given that this is not a new regulatory framework, rather one that allows the electronic version of pull tabs to be utilized by these charitable gaming organizations, Mr. Chairman. I know we've touched a little bit on the measure before, but I think it's important, given some of the context, that these organizations be allowed to compete with some of the issues that Senator Cosgrove just indicated.
Any questions of the patron? Is anyone here in opposition to this bill? Is anyone here in support of it? I knew you were. Yes.
Very briefly, Chris Peterson, representing the Virginia Charitable Gaming Council. We already gave our arguments in support, so I'll just make those part of the record, but we do support adoption of the bill.
Thank you. The committee will act as the committee wishes to act. My concern is that we are moving it away from bingo gaming structures that are exclusive to that, and we're talking about putting them into convenience stores or that type thing. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, there would be flexibility of restaurants, much like the private devices that are already in there that Senator Cosgrove just spoke to. It allows our charitable gaming that does have a regulatory context to participate as well. And so we know and have reports on those revenues, what those organizations do with it as well. And so we already have transparency into those organizations, where those funds are going. The other ones, we do not. And that's a part of the problem.
The way you have it drafted, it could go into each and every restaurant or convenience store that sells some kind of alcohol. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
My personal feeling is we need to think long and hard about that. I think that, like I said, in the halls, that's fine. But if we're going to open it up that much, I really believe it needs a little more study. So, is there a motion?
Move to report.
Properly moved and seconded to be reported and re-referred to finance.
And re-refer to finance.
For a study. No. I don't think he added the for the study. So, report and re-refer to finance. Any further discussion? Record your votes.
Ayes 14, noes 1.
All right. Is Senator Sturtevant here now? All right, we'll have to pause on that one. Okay. Senator, are you hiding back there, John? All right, come on up, John.
Chairman, members of the committee, I'm going to start with Senate Bill 20, whatever it is, not 1494. 1494? Do you have that? Is there a substitute?
Is there a motion to adopt the substitute? Properly moved and secondly adopted the substitute for Senate Bill 1494. Where'd our patron go? All right. Senator Newman, is yours fast?
This is the original nature of the substitute for the Senate. And this is what you want to say. Maybe take that out.
Yes, yes, that goes out.
He's back up in the podium.
Yes. And so what this is that if ordered, that's violated, shall not be admissible. That's all.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we do have a substitute.
I hope since we've
What's
adopted
wrong?
it.
Okay, all right, good. This is substitute proposed on Senate Committee on January the 21st, is that right? Let's see. Under 19, what I'd like to do is, the substitute is this, 9.1-302. It starts out, evidence gathered through the conduct of an interrogation that violates the provisions of this chapter should not be admissible in any case against a firefighter or individual who meets the definition of, quote, emergency medical services personnel in section 32.1-111.1, and put a period there. And then delete paragraph B, subparagraph B.
The way they passed it was evidence gathered solely.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, it should say evidence gathered solely through the conduct of an interrogation that violates the provision of this chapter should not be admissible in any case against a firefighter or individual who meets the definition of, quote, emergency medical services personnel in section 32.1-111.1, period. That's it.
Senator,
Mr. Chairman, Senator Edwards, that's not what the substitute says. It says on lines 45 through 46 that any evidence that is gathered solely through an interrogation that breached any such procedures, and then it strikes out the rest of lines 48 through 49. And then on the front page, it just strikes out that code section that would relate to it. It's cleaner language.
This is first. This is, all right. Okay, that's not correct. It should be any breach, is this what we're doing?
Mr. Chairman, can Amigo clarify?
Huh?
This doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Reach it. No, so it's got to be what you said.
Yeah, it's got to be what I just said. I don't know where this came from.
So the substitute that, or the amendment language that the senator is offering right now was the amendment language that we were going to propose at the last meeting. The substitute before you conforms the language of the bill to the version that passed in the House, Delegate Kriesic's bill, which uses different language in that section. It's similar functionally, so it prevents any evidence gathered in an improperly held interrogation from being used against a firefighter. It's just
With
slightly
the
different.
one dated January 21, it makes more sense, the one I just read.
If you prefer that, we can.
Yeah, I think the concept is that this has to do, by the way, for the public who's listening, the Firefighters and Emergency Medical Technicians Procedural Guarantee Act. And it's an amendment to make sure that any statements they made solely in the conduct of an interrogation would not be admissible.
Senator Edwards.
I think that's the idea. And so,
Are you saying that you do not want the substitute that we just passed?
no, I don't like it.
Okay.
It's not worded properly.
Is there
It's
a
confusing.
motion?
Mr. Chairman, haven't voted on the prevailing side in which we approve the substitute amendment in the nature of substitute. I ask that we, what's the motion? Second.
Revoke that.
Reconsider.
Motion is to reconsider the substitute for Senate Bill 1494. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, we're back with the original bill.
Okay.
Did that have an amendment now?
Yes, there is an amendment to the original bill, and that council read it. It's just that one on lines 12 through 14, and the rest of it's that's underlined is Xed out.
Amigo, would you report that amendment?
This one?
Okay.
Yeah, here it is.
Yeah, let's let me get to this one. We have the form of the amendment at this time.
Any breach solely language.
So the amendment would read on line 13, strike line 13 in its entirety, and the portion of line 14, the word presented. And after that, insert A, evidence gathered through.
You don't need A. You don't need A.
Don't need A? Okay. So evidence gathered through the conduct of an interrogation that violates the provisions of this chapter shall not be admissible. And then on line.
Let me read it. Let me read it. I think I can do better. I'm sorry. This is it. It's very simple. Evidence gathered solely through the conduct of an interrogation that violates the provisions of this chapter should not be admissible in any case against a firefighter or individual who meets the definition of, quote, emergency medical services personnel in section 32.1-111.1, period. That's it. That's the sole part of section 9.1-302, which is entitled breach of procedures. That's all that would be there.
Okay.
Everything else would be deleted.
Is there a motion to adopt that amendment? So moved. Properly moved and second, we adopt that amendment. All in favor say aye. All opposed? I think it was 1-2 or something like that. Anyway. All right, is there anyone who is here to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 1494? Hearing none, is there a motion? Yes, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Senator Edwards, I just wanted to clarify because in the substitute, you amended the code section for the definition to 9.1300, which is in the same code. But in the latest one, you mentioned 32.11111.
The substitute that we adopted and revoked is not before us. So tell me how that affects what you're saying.
So Michelle Gowdy, Virginia Municipal League, 9.1 is where this code section is, and then 300 emergency medical professionals defined. And so we think that we've spoken with the senator and with Delegate Krizek both about changing the 32.2 code reference to the 9.1. So that was just my point.
Have we done that, amigo? Or
Just
Brooks?
the definition. That should be the one that's in this code section. She's right.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion in addition to that to make that
9.1.
change of 9.1-300 and striking 32.1-111.1 in the text.
All right.
Okay.
I'm
Is there a
learning as I
second?
go along.
Probably moved and second that that amendment be added to the bill. All right. Is that clear as,
Mud.
is there anyone now who is in opposition to the bill? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Move to report as amendment.
Probably moved and second, bill be reported. All in favor, say aye. Record the votes. Aye. Okay, that bill is reported. Okay. Did you have another bill?
I do.
Do you want to take a breath before that?
Yes.
Senator Newman has a short one.
Senate Bill 1774, dealing with the Board of Contractors. And this would simply provide that inspectors of fire sprinklers be certified. And the reason for that is, several years ago, the Board of Contractors passed regulations to help ensure that the systems were properly designed and installed through sprinkler contractor licensing. However, there was no corresponding requirement that the persons who did the inspections be equally competent, as that's not yet required in the state building code. And it's important that the people who do the inspections be certified so that they would get continuing education, and without the certification renewals, they would not necessarily get continuing education. That's basically what we're saying. Filling a gap that it's one thing to make sure you have people who can install the sprinklers. It's another thing to have somebody who's an inspector. And that's what we're requesting to do.
Is there anyone here in opposition to Senate Bill 1774?
I might point to 30 states that require this.
Don't start up again.
Would you like me to name the states?
Properly moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1774 be reported. No further discussion. Record your votes.
Ayes 14, noes 1.
Thank you, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
Steve, Senator Newman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. There's a substitute that Amigo has prepared, if you would consider that substitute to serve.
Properly moved and seconded that the substitute for Senate Bill 1219 be adopted. All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
this bill comes out as a result of some concerns with DPOR. I understand from talking to their fine staff, Ms. Vaughn and others there, that they're going to continue to work with me on it. But the basic idea is that someone who is sitting for a contractor's license needs to be able to have more than one person who has taken the test for such license. In other words, they need to have the ability to have multiple individuals that have taken the test so that they can fall in line with the next person. The second part of it arises from the concern that came in my original bill that only one qualified person at a time would be the designated employee. That makes sense. We're not trying to change that because they need one responsible person, but the board needs to, I think, continue to review the regulation to make sure that there is time enough to allow that second person to step in and act in that first person's place in case there's death or if you have partners that dissolve the partnership in different ways. Mr. Chairman, that is the bill in the form of the substitute.
Is there anyone here in opposition to Senate Bill 1219? Hearing none, is there a motion? Properly moved and second, the bill be reported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, record your votes.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Okay, thank you. Senator Searle?
For 1756. So Senate Bill 56 arises out of about 2 years of discussions that have been going on at the Housing Commission about transfer of stormwater facilities at homeowners and condo associations, co-ops. Basically, when the developer transfers control to the HOA, the condo association, or the co-op, sometimes there's confusion about exactly where the stormwater facilities are or what they are. A lot of these new stormwater facilities are like these rain gardens and stuff, and they don't even look like a stormwater facility. And so sometimes these HOAs get things and they don't know that they got them or they don't know where they are. And so we had some discussions with the home builders to try to make it clearer that when control is transferred from the developer to the association, that they have to clearly identify exactly what's a stormwater facility and what isn't as part of the transfer of control to make sure that these HOAs know what they're getting and they maintain them. I believe there's a consensus about this. It was not endorsed by the Housing Commission only because we ran out of time and this discussion was going on right up until the last meeting. But I think if we had had time, it probably would have been endorsed, but we just kind of ran out of time. But I think there's peace in the valley on it. I don't think anybody's opposed to it, and would ask that we pass it.
Any questions? Is there anyone here in opposition to Senate Bill 1756?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question.
Senator Reeves.
Does it include drainage ditches that feed off of VDOT right-of-way or any of that stuff that ultimately leads to the facility itself? Because it just says facilities, but
it would be any, documented stormwater facility that's shown in the recorded plat.
the engineering specs plaques for that stormwater pond or whatever.
Right.
Okay. That's my question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Senator Black.
Yes. Is this documentation that is required to be provided something that is already in existence, or do they have to hire surveyors or whatever to accomplish this?
You can see that on lines 103 to 107, and then also on lines 136 to 140, it says that the developer can satisfy this requirement by giving them a final site plan or a final construction drawing showing the stormwater facilities as approved by the local government. So they should be able to satisfy it with a document they have to submit for approval.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Properly moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1756 be reported. Hearing no further conversation, record your votes. That bill is reported. Okay. Who else had a bill? You have one? All right.
Says my proxy been granted to Senator McPike. I've got 3 bills. I guess, do you have any preference, Mr. Chairman?
Whichever you say first.
All right, Senate Bill 1580, I know there's some bills or people waiting for that one, so it makes sense to do that one first.
Okay. Senate Bill 1580, and there appears to be a substitute, is that correct?
Yes, sir,
All right,
and I
this-
move that.
Properly moved and seconded, the substitute be adopted. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all review the substitute before you, it's been a long understanding under Virginia law that the purchaser is entitled of a real estate contract is entitled to remove themselves from that contract after the date of ratification with 3 or 6 days, depending on the method of delivery of when they get their disclosure packet or resale certificate. Last year, there was a court case on this very issue, and this bill is to make sure that our long understanding of what the law is indeed what the law is. And this is something that's been requested by the Virginia Realtors. I don't know if Chip Dix is in here or not. He's not. If he were, there's Anthony Reedy and Mr. Dix on behalf of the association. They're folks that helped work on this bill. It's a good bill. Happy to answer any questions.
Is there any opposition to Senate Bill 1580? Hearing none. Is there a motion?
Moved report.
Properly moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1580 be reported. Record your votes. And that bill is reported. All right.
All right. And it's all right if I'm not recorded on my own bill. I'll remember to vote yes on the floor. I also have Senate Bill 1581. Senate Bill 1581 seeks to codify Governor Ralph Northam's Executive Order number 12 that he issued last year regarding parental leave for state employees. And as you look over the bill, you can see what the policy ramifications of that bill or of that executive order is. And that's what the Commonwealth's currently existing under for all our state employees. And this bill would codify it, make it law so that it would go forward. The reason that I have this bill before you is this is my attempt this year that this committee has favorably acted on the last 2 years to provide parental leave to Virginia state employees who adopt a child. A few years ago, a lot of folks presumed that was already the case. We found out that wasn't when an employee with one of the state agencies adopted a child and sought to talk to their manager about arranging for the parental leave after they adopted that child, who was an infant, and they were told, no, you don't get it. You don't get to have any parental leave. It doesn't matter that this child, if you naturally given birth to them, would have qualified because you adopted this child days after they were born. You don't get parental leave. I thought that was terrible policy of the Commonwealth, and I've been trying to find a way to make it so that would not be the policy of the Commonwealth going forward. The last 2 years, this committee and Senate Finance and the full Senate has passed it every year. My previous attempts that were more narrow on that, they've gone to the House. Sometimes they don't have a hearing at all on House appropriation, so I've never got to hear why they don't like it.
It's you.
But I'm going to run through it again.
Did you get a fiscal impact?
There's a budget amendment. So I imagine the motion that I'd like to hear is a report to endorse it and re-refer to Finance, where I'm confident they will endorse it again like they have the last 2 years.
Properly moved and seconded that the bill be reported and re-referred to Finance. Is there any further conversation? Is anyone here in opposition to the bill? All right, record your votes. All right.
Ayes 15, no 0.
That one is reported. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also have Senate Bill 1703. Senate Bill 1703 seeks to improve upon the Commonwealth's handling of records from the governor's office. a lot of folks presume that after an administration ends, those records are public and they're available for review by the public. Unfortunately, they're not. And it's not just that we don't have Governor McAuliffe's records. You know, Governor McAuliffe finished in January of 2018. We also don't have Governor McDonald's records, who finished in January of 2014. And Tim Kaine, a U.S. Senator who's even been reelected to the U.S. Senate and was nominated for the vice presidency on the Democratic ticket, not even all of his records are available, even though he left the governor's mansion in January of 2010.
Okay. Senator Mason.
Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. So you say within 1 year, and you just cited 3 administrations that aren't there yet. Would they go within 1 year? Would you just have to dump them all? Would that 1 year, you dump them the next day, the next week? I mean, I think a lot of people like your idea, but I just don't understand how we get the information technology to come up to speed to do it quickly. And so I'm worried about what you envision, how you envision this happening, and all of a sudden a bunch of records just becoming public without having the proper Social Security numbers removed, just one of a million examples.
Yeah, there's several redactions that have to occur. And that's one of the questions. When I was just walking in here, someone said, I don't understand why we don't have Governor Kaine's records all available, considering WikiLeaks was able to get everyone else's records up very quickly. So I think we can do a lot better. And I think that nothing motivates like a deadline. There's been some, at this current pace,
right.
Governor Mason's records won't be available until 20 years after.
They most certainly won't. So, Mr. Chairman, but I guess walk me through how you envision. So we passed this. Obviously, I'm sure this has to go to finance. But I think even the Library of Virginia says they'd like to do it, but we've just grossly under-resourced them to do what the redactions that we're asking about right now is maybe one of the reasons these records aren't up. So what do you envision? What's the Suderline view of the world?
I would tell the senator that I have a budget amendment in, and so I think that that's something that if you endorse the policy, if you think that's right, but the question is how do we go about it to making sure that they're able to do it, I think that you also should make the same motion you did on the executive order codification bill.
Mr. Chairman, one last thing. This is not the place, but how much is your budget amendment?
The approximately 200,000
million.
Yeah, 1,000. Because it's only for 1 year, and that's an approximation in my mind. As you notice, my file for that appears to be at Commerce and Labor. So I got my good Commerce and Labor bills. I'm happy to tell you about 100% green energy. But that's where the budget amendment is on that. I think that's something that we're going to have to discuss in finance and hopefully in House Appropriations if we have a hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
To add on to that, I suspect that it would just speed up the process, but I don't think we would catch up in this decade. Even if you took 2 years per year, it still would take a long time. Any further questions? Is there anyone here in opposition to Senate Bill 1703? Welcome.
I'm Sandra Treadway, the agency head for the Library of Virginia, and I want to be very clear, I'm not speaking in opposition. We are all about transparency in government, and as I shared with Senator Suderline, we support the intent behind this bill very much. The reality for us, though, is that we don't have the staff or the technology. So if this were to move forward, as Senator Mason said, we would need additional resources. I can't begin to list here, but when things come to the archives, the confidential material that is protected by law is still protected. So we actually have to go through and remove or redact everything from Homeland Security Executive Protection Unit information, juvenile justice, criminal justice, investigative information, the list goes on. And that right now is very labor-intensive to do. We are working with a research university in Canada that's trying to develop an artificial intelligence tool, and it's got real promise, but it's costly to use. But if we were to get a budget amendment that allowed us to use that tool, we believe within a year that tool and some additional staff, we would be able to close the backlog that we have and make available the records of Governor McDonnell and Governor McAuliffe. And then going forward, we'd have to use that technology every 4 years. But it would take, there is a fiscal impact statement, and it would take those resources to be able to do it. But we would love to do it.
A couple of budget cycles ago, y'all cut pretty severely.
Yes.
Have y'all been brought back up to?
We still have about 66 vacancies, so we're that far below our maximum employment level. So that's the issue. I don't have people I can move to put to doing this.
Thank you.
But we do want to do it.
Thank you. Any further conversation? Hearing none. Record your votes.
I move to report and re-refer to finance.
Yeah, I've already done that. Okay. All right. You've heard the motion is to report and re-refer to finance. Record your votes.
Governor Mason, not.
Ayes 14, noes 1.
Who goes on the wrong side of 14-1 votes? What kind of person does that?
Senator Reeves, did you have any? Senator Black? No. Senator McKnight?
Mr. Chairman, let's do 1625.
All right, listen up to 1625.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, 1625 is a request of the administration. What this bill does is take out of the code we have currently in our code in definition of fireworks names like Pharaoh's Serpent, caps for pistols, pinwheels, or whirligigs, and spinning jennies. And so, as you can imagine, from a code standpoint, names change over time. And so what this does is simply provide the definition, the technical pyrotechnic definitions of what is current law. And Mr. Chairman, the Fire Marshal's Office has worked with the fireworks industry, and we have a substitute that addresses a few of their comments.
Properly moved and seconded, we adopt a substitute for Senate Bill 1625. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Okay. All right. Have you finished?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does anyone here wish to speak in opposition to the bill? I know there was some opposition before the substitute, but that's been worked out. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Black.
can you describe which fireworks are no longer permissible after this change is made?
Well, Mr. Chairman, all the existing fireworks legal today remain legal, and other folks can speak to it.
Chairman Ruff, members of the committee, David Skiles with the Vector Corporation representing American Promotional Events and its subsidiary TNT Fireworks. As you know, TNT Fireworks is a manufacturer and distributor of permissible fireworks. We did have some initial concerns with the legislation as it was introduced, but working with the State Fire Marshal and Senator McPike, we feel that the definition of permissible fireworks would allow anything that's currently sold in the Commonwealth right now to remain. So to Senator McPike's point, there's obviously change in names over time, and I understand the Fire Marshal wanted to have some consistency, which I'll let them speak to. But from our perspective, the language that's before you would allow anything that is currently being sold to remain being sold. So children can still enjoy their sparklers on the 4th of July.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Brian McGraw, your State Fire Marshal. And to speak to the point, the concern here is just the intent of this bill. It does not either expand or contract what is currently considered permissible fireworks within the Commonwealth. It puts what is permissible into performance language. It reflects what we are doing in practice, and it prevents us from having to come back every few years when a trade name of a product changes. So there is no expansion or contraction. It keeps the status quo. There is no fiscal impact. It just cleans up the definition.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else anyone in opposition? Is there a motion? Properly moved and
You can't
maybe a
have
second.
anything that explodes or produces a report.
You want a second?
I'll second.
Okay. That Senate Bill 1625 be reported. All in favor, record your votes.
Ayes 12, noes 3.
All right, that one is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next bill is Senate Bill 1705. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, what this bill does is helps us to sunset the provisions for the Virginia War Memorial Board and transfers the duties to the Veteran Services Board. I serve on the War Memorial Board along with Senator DeStaff and Senator Edwards as chair. As you may be aware, we are working right now on the current expansion of the Virginia War Memorial to recognize the sacrifice of Virginians lost in combat. We are narrowing out through that mission, and it's an opportunity to recognize the good work of the Virginia War Memorial Board and in the future transfer those duties to the Veteran Services Board. And that is the bill, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Is there any opposition to the bill? Properly moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1705 be reported. Hearing no further conversations, record your votes.
Ayes 15, no 0.
That one is reported. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, next bill is Senate Bill 1737, and we have a substitute available.
Properly moved and seconded that the substitute for 1737 be adopted. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, this bill provides for what's occurred over the last month since the federal government shutdown has impacted many of our constituents throughout the Commonwealth. What this law seeks to do is to provide a stay of 30 days for foreclosures and or evictions. And so even though the federal government is back open, we know that federal government workers still will not receive paychecks for roughly another week. And frankly, I think many of us know that the domino effect from this is still going to take months to play out. There are many families that have had dual income earners, have missed paychecks, have had significant impacts. And frankly, we know that it's a temporary opening of 3 weeks. And we don't know yet what's going to occur here over the next month. And so the substitute before you has included a couple additional provisions, getting feedback from different stakeholders to make sure that various provisions in terms of how you would identify that you are either a federal worker or a contractor that has been impacted by the furlough the process of which you would do to notify and request this sort of relief. It also identifies the fact that there might be private agreements that already have taken place. There are some banks that are doing good jobs in entering into agreements. And so if those are already in place, then this 30-day provision would not apply. So we've worked with a number of different organizations working through this substitute to try to accommodate various definition concerns. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, that is the bill, and I encourage that it pass. It does have an emergency clause, so it would require a significant majority of both the House and the Senate, and it does have a sunset of September 30th of 2019, anticipating that most of the coming months of fiscal impact will be able to resolve. So the idea is that we have enough time that we're capturing this bill to allow those impacted to recover financially.
Is there one questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reeves.
Chairman Pike, so we're basically creating a cutout for federal employees, but my counterparts in the private sector have nothing. Is that, we're not going to do anything for them, but we're going to do something for all the federal employees. Is that the gist of this?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Reeves, if you look on line 15, we do have the definition of United States government employee, but we also have independent contractors included in this, as well as an employee of a company under contract. So we know that there are many both direct and indirect persons being employed through direct and indirect means that are impacted by the shutdown. So this does anticipate and cover those provisions.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Sturtevant.
I just have questions about what this does to the landlords that would stop receiving rent.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd answer the senator. Lines, let's see, 17 through 24 also cover the provision of notes by default are secured by one family to four family residential properties. So it does cover, in fact, those who are receiving rent as well and secured by this property. So anticipating those under 5 properties, you might have folks who own homes or several homes but lease rent those out to individuals. If they are impacted, those will also be covered by this provision.
Conclude your questions. Is there anyone here in opposition to Senate Bill 1737 as amended? Hearing none, is there a motion? Properly moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1737 be reported. Record your votes.
Ayes 12, noes 2, 1 abstention.
Okay, that one's reported. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Sturtevant.
Nobody else gets that.
No one gets that.
If you get laid off.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is Senate Bill 1527. This is the charitable gaming bill that was overviewed at the gaming committee meeting we had a couple of Fridays ago. This is a bill that Mr. Wade did a really nice summary of, and it essentially removes the restrictions on the number of calendar days that charitable gaming may be conducted at buildings owned by nonprofit entities and increases to 4 the number of days that gaming may be conducted in buildings owned by those other than nonprofit entities. So currently a nonprofit can have gaming 4 days a week. We would take that away. And then other entities that are not nonprofits are limited to 2 days a week for bingo and charitable gaming, and this would increase it to 4 days a week. It also takes away, there's a limit in the law that only 55 bingo games can be played per session. We are removing that restriction, and then we're also increasing the number of electronic pull tabs that can be placed from 9 to 50. And then we're also authorizing the organization putting on the games to pay the members who were there as callers up to $50 per session.
Any questions? Does it change the number of hours in a day?
I think so. No, Mr. Chairman, just the number of days.
Any other questions? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 1527?
Senator Sturgeon, you got an amendment?
I'm sorry.
I think there is an amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment would be on line 78 after paid to strike members of a qualified organization and insert individuals who assist in the conduct of charitable gaming.
Properly moved and seconded that amendment be adopted. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. That is part of the bill now. Okay. No other questions. The proper motion is that it be reported and re-referred to finance.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Record your votes.
Ayes 14, noes 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Mason, did you have one?
Yes, sir.
You have one too.
Senate Bill 1681. So this deal, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and there is a substitute. Of course, we are substituting machines around here, so I move the substitute.
Second.
Substitute properly moved and seconded to adopt the substitute. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
So it starts on line 103, once you get it. We had a left hand didn't know what the right hand situation was the other day with some surplus property from DGS. We actually have a seed grant from Go Virginia to do something with the property, try to promote economic development. All of a sudden, there was wind that the state wanted to sell it. So around those conversations, we started realizing, why don't we put a process in place? And so in line 103, you see what we've tried to do there. So if the state wants to sell, they'll contact a local chief administrative officer, economic development, and say, hey, you interested in the property? Line 107, that locality's chief or designee will have 180 days from the date to say, yes, we think we got a bona fide economic development opportunity. Line 111, they will submit a proposal, and then the Commonwealth will determine if this proposal is viable and results in favorable benefit to the Commonwealth. And then, if so, line 114, 115, the Commonwealth will start to negotiate with the locality, see if they can cut a deal. If they cut a deal, so be it, good for everyone. But finally, if not, on 117, 118, if they can't get there, the state will proceed with the disposition of the property per their usual process. Okay. That's what we're trying to do, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody in opposition to this bill? Hearing none. Any
Move
further
to report.
discussion? Motion is to report and be report and re-refer to finance. For no further discussion, record your votes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ayes 15, no 0.
All right. Thank you.
Can you just match, except for on game?
Yeah. Okay. Senator Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Senate Bill 1450, and we do have peace in the valley on this one. And there is a substitute. Of course, we have a substitute.
Motion is to adopt the substitute for Senate Bill 1450. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay.
And this is the final of the bills that I'm carrying with regard to the evictions coming out of the Virginia Housing Commission, and this one deals with the eviction diversion pilot program. And what Senate Bill 1450 does will be the following. It will create a pilot eviction diversion program in 4 localities: Richmond, Petersburg, Danville, and Hampton. The pilot program would begin on July 1st, 2020, and last for 3 years with a sunset. The Supreme Court would administer the pilot program and provide data to the Housing Commission in the summer of 2022, so the Commission can review the data and make recommendations to the 2023 General Assembly. The Housing Commission believes the pilot eviction diversion program and the collection of data on evictions will provide the General Assembly with the information it needs to determine what legislation will be needed to better craft solutions to address the high rates of eviction in Virginia. I'm not aware of any opposition now to this legislation, and Chip Dix is here if there are any questions with regard to this.
Okay, thank you. So everybody's happy now?
Everybody's happy.
Anyone here in opposition to Senate Bill 1450 as a substitute? Hearing none. Is there a motion? Properly moved and seconded that the bill be reported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Yes. Still good. All right. Record your votes.
Mr. Hold up.
Hold up.
Sheriff, if I could speak briefly.
Yes.
Chip Dix on behalf of the Realtors, and the Office of the Executive Secretary is here, and there is a revised fiscal impact statement that reflects 0. And so there was a fiscal impact with the bill before this substitute, but now with the substitute, there is no fiscal impact.
I will have to turn to Amigo. Have you gotten a revocation of that request?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have the request yet, but those requests don't normally come to me.
How do I get them if you don't get them?
Executive Secretary is
Sure.
here. Perhaps
Come
she
on
can
up
speak
and
to
you
it.
you can tell that Chip he's right or wrong.
Mr. Chairman, Alyssa Padden with the Office of the Executive Secretary. I don't know that a revised fiscal impact statement has been filed yet. However, I have assured Mr. Dix and can assure you all that the substitute has addressed everything that gave rise to the fiscal impacts. Our conclusion is that the substitute does not have a fiscal impact.
Okay. If you are wrong, you got to come back again. Okay, then. All right. All in favor, record your votes. All right, that one is recorded.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I try that whole thing with the one we just passed to mine?
Senator Reeves, will you take over, please?
You want to take up 1751 first? Sure. Committee will bring their attention to 1751.
Chairman, Senate Bill 1751, think you have is it amendment or is a substitute? All right, would you report those?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The First Amendment is on line 336 after shows. Strike the remainder of lines 336, all of lines 337 and 338, and through Romnet 1 on line 339, and insert unspent and unencumbered revenue exceeds $100,000 or 20% of the total expenses allocated to the regulatory board for the past biennium, whichever is greater. The regulatory board shall, 1, distribute all excess revenue to current regulants of the board, and 2, and then it would carry on with the rest of that sentence. The Second Amendment is on line 340. After expenses, strike the remainder of lines 340 through board on line 341. The Third Amendment is after line 1227, insert a third enactment clause that the provisions of the first enactment amending Section 54.1-113 shall become effective on July the 1st, 2022. And Mr. Chairman, the first two amendments clarify direction to the Department of Professional and Occupational Regulation regarding what's to be done with the unspent and unencumbered revenue. And the last amendment adds a delayed effective date for those provisions, which was a part of the original JLOC recommendation, but was not included in the bill as introduced.
Thank you. Do any members have a question for Amigo or Senator Ruff?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So the origins of the bill are from a JLARC study, is that what's being indicated?
There have been a fair number of concerns by members about whether they have been as properly dealing with some of the issues over the course of several years. Last year, there was a study that was completed that made several recommendations, and some of those issues we chose not to deal with. Some we chose at a little later date not to deal with. But those are the items that we took out. And it clarified that, and one of the problems that was that they were holding money from licenses that were paid for longer without making any adjustments. So money was piling up in these accounts. And so this gives them some time to figure out how to flush it out.
That answer your question? Okay, any other members? Anybody wish to speak in favor of the bill, or anybody wish to speak in opposition to the bill? Somebody here from D4? Okay, there. Are you okay with the bill? Are you from D4? Okay, do you have a position on the bill? Okay, all right, no position means no position. Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that the bill be reported. Committee will vote.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. Senator Ruff, you have 1752.
1752, it deals with the lottery and civil penalties. There was a reporter that came down from the Wisconsin area where they'd had some problems with the lottery, and he did a story on it, and they discovered that several locations were redeeming tickets at a much greater rate than other areas. They have been working over the course of the last 6-8 months since that report came out to try to make sure everything's straight. This gives them another tool to recover some of that money. A lot of times what they were doing with the person who bought the ticket who won would go back to the store and say, hey, look, I'll sell you I'll give you the ticket for less money because I haven't got child support and I don't want to pay that child support. This would give them, the state, an opportunity to go back and collect that money from both ends, so that's it would be a gain for the parent or the state Commonwealth for back taxes to pay down some of those things. Lost track of what I was going to say, but that's the purpose. Right now, the only tool they have is to take the license away from a lottery location, and that's not necessarily the best thing. If you're a great location, everything else is great. It gives them an opportunity without taking a license.
What's left of the members? Does anybody have a question? Anybody wish to speak to the bill, either for or against? Okay, Amigo, you want to call out the amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are three technical amendments that are, there are three places where a prize winner is written as one word and it's to be written as two. On line 13, at the beginning of the line, you would strike prize winner as one word and then insert prize winner as two words. Then at line 14, after the original, the same thing, and at line 14, after identity as, the same amendment.
Okay.
Major.
Make a motion on the amendments. All right, we're going to move the amendments. All those in favor of the amendments say aye. Any opposed? Okay, now the bill is properly for us. I'll take a motion on that. It's been moved and seconded. Committee will vote.
Ayes 14, one abstention.
Mr. Chairman, you know Senator Serville is going to have a question about how to approve it, so I had to put an abstention there for him.
Senator Ruff, I think that's all your bills?
Now I've got one more.
Okay, go ahead.
Senate Bill 1688.
Oh, wrong page.
Over the last several years, this committee has been very supportive of changing the procurement laws because there appear to be some problems that we're having. Some long-standing Virginia companies have effectively been cut out of most of the bid process because we have going to construction management more and more. There's no way to make sure that we're getting the best price available. We have been successful in this committee. We've been successful in the Senate. The House has been a little bit less cooperative. And so this year we thought we'd try it a little different way. And that is that if you're a bidder on a project and you've made a significant contribution to the university that's planning to build a building, it sheds a little light on it so that the public can decide whether it's good policy or not to award no bid contracts to companies that have been contributors to foundations which are not part of the open public process. This would just give them a little more honesty in the process.
So this is a transparency disclosure if you're going to be bidding on a process within a school. That's
correct.
The summary. Any members have a question about the bill or its intent? Looks like you got a line behind you. Do we have an amendment? You have several amendments. Let's
change
move.
words again.
Amigo, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. By the way, I don't get paid by amendment. Thank you, Chairman.
Do you get paid more for two words like breadwinner or breadwinner?
It's job security, sir. And line 19, after offerer, insert or any affiliated entity or any other or any of their respective officers, directors, managers, or members. The Second Amendment is on line 22, after $500, insert and shall be guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor under Section 2.2-4377. And the last amendment is on line 22, after the strike attorney for the Commonwealth and insert Attorney General.
So, Amigo, we're taking it from a civil penalty to a criminal penalty?
Mr. Chairman, the reference to the Class 1 misdemeanor is this is in the Ethics in Contracting article of the Public Procurement Act, and that section that is cited, 2.2-4377, makes it a Class 1 misdemeanor to violate the Ethics in Contracting Act. So it's sort of connecting it back to the actual violation.
I got you. Good wordsmithing. Okay, so the amendments are before us. Is there a motion on the amendments? It's been moved and seconded to approve the amendments. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Senator Ruff, looks like you got a few folks behind you. Are they for it or against it?
I don't
For?
think they're in opposition.
Thumbs up. Okay, we're for it. We're going to keep moving. Any members have a question for the senator?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Question for the patron. So it's my understanding with the addition of 2.2-4376 I guess, okay. I resolved the question, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Been moved and properly seconded by Senator Locke that the bill will be reported and re-referred to finance. See, I think that stuff. All those in favor, the committee will vote.
Ayes 15, no zero.
15-0, Mr. Chairman. Senator Donovan, you have a bill left?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two bills, and I'm gonna start with 1589.
Committee to bring your attention to 1589.
Mr. Chairman, this is a bill that proposes a portal called Virginia Works. And we've heard a lot about portals, a lot of things that are going on. The key in Virginia is that we have a vigorous economy that we want to really help make sure they have the available workforce. You can't disconnect that from education. We have an enormous number of initiatives attempting to educate all levels of post-secondary degree work, but nobody knows where to go to figure out how to get the right education or how to figure out what job they want or to get that job. So we are building on the idea other states have used where they have developed a single portal. A portal is basically a website you have to sign into so that the state then has the ability to track the people that are participating. But this portal would allow us to co-locate in one place all of the initiatives we have in Virginia for post-secondary education and for workforce. This aligns very nicely with what's already happening in workforce with Megan Healy's workforce portal that she's looking to align. And we do have a substitute. Thank you so much. That she's looking.
Properly moved and second that we adopt the substitute for Senate Bill 1589. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Essentially, the substitute works to, this is going to take us a little bit of time to pull together. We have a portal that already exists. You guys may remember when we talked about passport legislation and making sure that people who paid for credits in a community college would be guaranteed that those would be also credited to them in a four-year institution. We also have the veterans portal in our community college portal where veterans take their academic and educational endeavors in their military service and translate them into Carnegie credits. We're going to build on that portal and create a new governance structure for the portal. And that will include the community colleges, SHEV, K-12 education with our superintendent, as well as VEDP and workforce with Megan Healy and VEC. So they're going to spend the next year figuring out exactly how to do this. They're all going to help support it. There's a budget amendment in for us as well as they look at what that might cost to build it out, but not much this year as they figure out how to do it. But I think this is going to be a way for people in and outside of Virginia to figure out how to come here, get a job, and be a prosperous part of our workforce.
All right. Senator Evan.
I would just ask the patron, does this duplicate any work of the other portals, or can we, do the people who develop the other ones, I like the idea of centralizing, but I just want to know if we can cut out any duplication of staff resources.
I think that there's the opportunity for that, and we hope that that will be the case. I think we're going to see alignment of a lot of different programs as we move forward because we are developing things. Portals like the one that's being worked on with Workforce right now that is co-locating all the federal programs will probably stay a particular page or portal within this one, but others may overlap, and in fact, this is where TIOP may run through. As we look at the Medicaid work requirement. And so really, if you want, I think that if you work anywhere in state agencies in Virginia, or if you're anybody that lives here, parent, counselor, student, this should all be able to intersect so that you can really explore what your opportunities are, and hopefully we'll drive everybody to the same place.
Senator Donovan, when you have talked to Megan, you have not seen any overlap that can't be adjusted with the work?
No, sir. In fact, Megan's very excited about this, and this is one of the other aspects of this with the language that we continue to work on is that this is going to be the place in Virginia where we can actually do data analysis of what jobs we really need. We all know that there have been some concerns about how we're aligning that, what the jobs are of the future, and we'll be able to do it in a much more robust and timely manner so that we can connect everything figures through here, apprenticeships, tech talent pipeline, all of those things would be co-located here.
Okay. Is anyone here in opposition to Senate Bill 1589? Hearing none, is there a motion? Let's see. The proper motion would be refer and re-refer to finance.
Move to report.
Report and re-refer to finance. Thank you. All right. No further discussion. Record your votes.
Thank you for voting for me, Mr. Chairman.
Ayes 15, no zero.
And you had another.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do. I have 1589, and it also has an amendment in the form of a substitute. Just line amendments, I clarify, just line amendments. I think I just switched my bills. I did. This is a bill that is generated in response to a particular need of one of my constituents, Mr. Chairman. He has a catering business and has been eligible for a micro-business designation and being able to compete in that marketplace over the last many years. In good faith with his employees, he put all of his part-time employees on his payroll. And the way that the language in the regulations has been interpreted is that if you have 25 or more employees, you are no longer eligible to be a micro business. I really think the intent of that bill, and even in discussions with a small business, I can't remember the name of the agency, but the intent was that this be FTEs. It's a little harder to track, and it's going to be a little more onerous for them to look at, but they're looking at strategies to do that. But this particular competitor in small business was knocked out of that competition and lost contracts. So I am just seeking to find better language by which we can identify this really means FTEs, not total number. Nobody in business talks about how many part-time people they have. They talk about how many FTEs. And the line amendments are mostly just to characterize this so that it is not codifying necessarily that Executive Order 20, which is so controversial, but alluding to it in the code. And thank you, Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are a total of 4 amendments. The first amendment is on line 5. It's a title amendment. After 2, strike micro and insert certain small. The second amendment is on line 12. After as, and strike micro business and insert smaller businesses and any subcategory of small businesses established as a part of an enhancement or remedial measure authorized by the governor pursuant to subsection C of section 2.2-4310. The third amendment is on line 13 after business, the second instance of the term business, insert or any subcategory of small business. And the final amendment, Mr. Chairman, is on line 14, after certified, strike the remainder of line 14, all of line 15, and through years on line 16, and insert using full-time equivalents to determine employee size.
Thank you, Amico.
Is there a motion to accept those amendments?
So moved.
Properly moved and seconded. We adopt those. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. 1-0. Is there any further discussion? Is there anyone here in opposition? Sure.
How does, Senator Donovan, how does your bill relate to Executive Order 20?
Executive Order 20 is the one that created micro businesses. And so so as a result of Executive Order 20, the language, the regulation was developed in order to institute the intent of Executive Order 20. And so it doesn't exist in code. It exists in executive order. So in code, I would like to direct those regulations be changed so that small businesses are not knocked out based on the number of part-time employees, but only FTEs. And so that's how it relates to Executive Order 20.
Since that term is not in the code, the next governor may call them mini businesses rather than micro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just have a question for clarity. I didn't hear. In your amendment, did you remove the provision that said the average annual gross receipts of $3 million or less averaged over the previous 3 years? Is that
No, I didn't remove it from the regulations. I removed it from my language to make it a little bit less specific. I didn't really need to talk about that because I'm not addressing it at all. I just addressed the part so that still exists in the regs.
Okay.
I just didn't need to express it in the code.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Any further questions?
Move to report.
Let's see if there's anybody in opposition to Senate Bill 1592. Hearing none, your motion is report. Second? No further discussion, record your votes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members.
Okay.
I'm so sorry to leave you, but thank you for voting for me.
Okay. Senator Evans, do you want to start speaking Russian again?
Yeah, I'll do my best, comrade. This 1233 has a substitute.
Properly moved and seconded, the substitute for Senate Bill 1233 be adopted. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Okay, you may remember that we heard this, I guess it was a few weeks ago, about the Kaspersky Lab software. The last bill was very specific, naming one company. And what we have done here at the suggestion of Senator Serval and working with VITA is we, on lines 83 to 98, talk about having the Chief Information Officer notifying all public bodies about the prohibition of certain software and hardware or services that have been prohibited by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for use on federal systems, and to make those prohibited in Virginia by those local bodies.
Very good. Is there anyone here in opposition to Senate Bill 1233? Hearing none, record.
Move
your
to report.
Record your votes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Senator Dance has asked that her bill number 1394 be stricken because it essentially is a copy of what Senator Marson had a couple of weeks ago. Properly moved and seconded that one. It has been seconded. Wake up, anybody? That Senate Bill 1394 be stricken. Record your votes. All right. And the last one, Senator DeSteph asked that one to be carried over to next week. So does that complete it? Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. The committee will rise.